Tom Cruise, the man who risked his life on every stunt, the guy who never seems to age, has just revealed a secret that shocks the world. At 63, he's finally admitting something no one knew, a truth so shocking, fans are left speechless. Everything you thought you knew about him is about to be completely turned upside down. For decades, everyone has been wrong about me. Those were the first words Tom Cruise spoke as he stepped onto the stage of a dimly lit studio, instantly silencing the crowd. The cameras captured every angle as the legendary actor, now 63 years old, stood alone, his presence commanding the room without any help. Known around the world for defying gravity, hanging off airplanes, leaping across skyscrapers, and performing stunts that even younger actors wouldn't dare attempt, Tom had finally decided it was time to reveal something he had kept hidden for years, a truth so personal and profound that it would shock fans everywhere. What made the moment even more extraordinary was what wasn't there. No assistants bustling behind him, no makeup team to perfect his image, no dramatic music swelling in the background. There was only Tom Cruise standing under the spotlight, facing the world with nothing but honesty and raw courage. Millions of viewers across the globe were glued to their screens. Comments and messages exploded online within seconds. Fans, journalists, and fellow actors couldn't believe this was happening. A man who had spent decades carefully crafting an image of perfection, fearlessness, and invincibility was finally tearing down the walls he had built around himself. For years, speculation had surrounded Tom's life, his intense training regimen, his unwavering motivation, even rumors about his personal relationships. Everyone had assumed they knew the man behind the legend. But tonight, he promised that would no longer be the case. The energy in the studio was electric. People leaned forward in anticipation, knowing they were about to witness a side of Tom Cruise that had never been seen before. Every eye in the room was fixed on him as he paused, letting the silence stretch, just long enough to make the crowd feel the weight of the moment. This was not a promotional event. This was not a movie press tour. This was Tom Cruise speaking not as an actor, not as a celebrity, but as a human being, someone who had faced fears, doubts, and struggles just like everyone else. He took a slow, deep breath, then continued. His voice, calm yet intense, carried through the studio. For decades, I have lived behind an image, behind a mask that I created because I was afraid, he said. Afraid of being seen as ordinary, afraid of failure, afraid of the truth about myself. The audience gasped. Social media feeds were already flooding with comments. Is this real? Tom Cruise is finally being honest? I never expected this from him. Tonight was different. Tonight, Tom Cruise was finally going to speak for himself. No scripts, no PR spin, no Hollywood filters. Just the man who had risked life and limb for his craft, finally revealing the person behind the action star for millions of fans around the world. It was a moment that would be remembered forever, not for the stunts he performed, but for the courage it took to reveal his truth. And as he looked out into the crowd, there was an unmistakable glimmer in his eyes, a mix of vulnerability, relief, and determination. Tom Cruise, the man the world thought they knew, was about to change everything with one simple promise that, for the first time in decades, he would tell his story on his own terms. Tom began by addressing a question that had haunted his fans and the media for over 40 years. Why do you still do your own stunts? The room fell silent as he smiled a rare, tired smile that few had ever seen on camera. It wasn't the confident, untouchable grin the world had grown accustomed to. Instead, it carried vulnerability, honesty, and a hint of the man behind the legend. When I was young, he began, I wasn't fearless. I was terrified. People see the confidence, the charisma, the stunts, but few know what it took to get here. I grew up wanting to prove something, not to anyone else, but to myself. Asterisk, the confession caught the audience off guard. For years, Tom Cruise had been the symbol of fearlessness. Yet here he was, admitting that the legendary courage they admired had been born out of fear. He shared a story from his teenage years, a period few had heard about. Long before Hollywood lights and red carpets, Tom had struggled with self-doubt and a learning disability that made school nearly impossible. Teachers assumed he would never succeed. Other kids teased him relentlessly. He moved from town to town, never quite feeling at home, never finding a place where he belonged. Every day had been a battle, and every night a reminder that the world seemed bigger than he could handle. But everything changed one afternoon when he was 14. Tom watched a stuntman practicing a fall from a ladder during a local stage rehearsal. The man moved with calm precision and quiet confidence. There was no fear in his body. Yet he wasn't reckless, he was powerful, in complete control of himself. Tom later said, that moment changed everything for me. I realized that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward even when you're terrified. It's the choice to face what scares you most, again and again, until it doesn't control you anymore. From that day on, he devoted himself entirely to mastering his body. He trained relentlessly, turning his fear into fuel. He learned to fall safely, roll, flip, climb, run, and push his physical limits. Each movement, each stunt, became a testament to the man he wanted to be: strong, fearless, and in control. Hollywood would later see him as a daredevil. But for Tom, every stunt was a battle won against the fear that had haunted him since childhood. Even now, at 63, Tom continues to train every single day. Stunts remind me I'm alive, he confessed. They remind me I fought for this life, every jump, every fall, every dangerous scene. It's proof that I didn't let fear win. Millions of fans felt chills as they watched. This wasn't the polished, rehearsed answer they had expected. There was no Hollywood glamour here, no marketing spin, just a man speaking the truth about his fears, his discipline, and the reason he continues to risk it all. It was real, raw, and deeply human. For Tom Cruise, the stunts weren't just about thrill or fame, they were about surviving, growing, and proving to himself that he could rise above fear, no matter how impossible it seemed. That simple revelation changed the way fans saw him, not just as an action star, but as a man who had turned fear into a lifelong mission of courage and determination. Then, Tom surprised the audience again, and the energy in the room shifted instantly. Asterisk, there was one movie that almost made me quit acting forever, he said. The crowd gasped. Tom Cruise quitting acting. It seemed impossible. This was the man who had defied death on countless stunts. The actor who seemed untouchable, fearless, and unstoppable. And yet, here he was, admitting that a single role had nearly broken him. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in before continuing. He spoke of a film that had drained him not physically, not because of daring stunts or long shooting schedules, but because of the emotional toll it demanded. The role forced him to confront truths about himself that he had long avoided. For weeks, months, he had struggled to separate the character from his own reality. At first, he didn't reveal the movie's title. Instead, he described the character. A man who seemed invincible on the outside. A man who pushed everyone away. A man whose public persona hid a deep, private loneliness. It was a role that hit too close to home. It mirrored his own fears, his own doubts, and the side of himself he rarely allowed anyone to see. Finally, with a faint, almost shy smile, he admitted it was Jerry Maguire. People cheered, but Tom's expression remained serious. People think it's a fun, romantic movie, he said, but for me, it was a mirror. The loneliness of the character, the fear of losing yourself, the constant pressure to perform and be perfected all felt too real, too raw, too exposing. Asterisk, he went on to describe what filming was like. After long days on set, he would retreat to his trailer and sit in silence for hours, wrestling with emotions he had buried for years. This was the first time he truly questioned whether he could continue acting, whether the world saw him at all or only the carefully constructed image of Tom Cruise. I felt like I was living two lives, he admitted, and one of them was slowly swallowing the other. The life everyone saw, and the one I was actually living inside. They were becoming impossible to separate when Jerry Maguire became a global success. Most would have expected him to feel exhilarated, proud, triumphant. But Tom felt none of that. Instead, he felt exposed, vulnerable, and deeply unsettled. The applause and accolades meant little because, inside, he was still grappling with the questions the role had raised about himself, his career, and the price of fame. For years after, he buried himself in work, throwing himself into movies, stunts, and public appearances. It was a way to outrun the emotions he didn't want to face: the loneliness, the doubt, the fear that he wasn't enough. Every film, every scene, every stunt was a shield against the vulnerability he had experienced during that project. But Tom made it clear, this confession wasn't the reason he had gathered everyone tonight. No, there was something deeper, something heavier, a truth he had carried silently for decades, a lesson learned not from fame, fortune, or accolades, but from facing the fragility of the human spirit, and the courage it takes to confront it head-on. The audience sat in stunned silence, realizing they were witnessing more than a Hollywood story. They were witnessing a man revealing the cracks behind the armor of a legend. Tom took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for anyone who could truly understand what he was about to say. The audience fell completely silent. Every camera lens, every phone recording, every eye in the room seemed to hold its breath. "The truth is," he began, his voice low but steady, "I've lived with fear my whole life. Not fear of stunts, not fear of failure, fear of stopping." There was a pause. The words hung in the air, heavy and almost unimaginable, coming from a man the world saw as unstoppable. For decades, fans had watched him climb mountains, leap from airplanes, hang off helicopters, and sprint through fire and explosions. To them, he was fearless, invincible, larger than life. But tonight, Tom was stripping that illusion away. He explained that for decades, he believed slowing down meant fading away. To him, rest was a weakness. Taking a break was unthinkable. He pushed himself relentlessly physically, mentally, emotionally, never allowing his body or mind a moment of reprieve. Every stunt, every scene, every high-pressure performance was part of a lifelong race he felt he could never afford to lose. But a few years ago, reality caught up with him. While training for another high-risk scene, Tom felt a sudden, sharp pain in his chest. A searing, unforgiving pain that refused to be ignored. Doctors told him bluntly that if he didn't reduce his workload, he risked permanent damage. But the very idea of slowing down terrified him. He kept going, convincing himself that he was untouchable, that his body could handle anything. That fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. Then came the day that changed everything. After a particularly dangerous stunt rehearsal, his body finally said no. He collapsed. Darkness swallowed him, and when he woke up, he was in a hospital bed, staring at a ceiling that felt impossibly white and sterile. The doctor's words cut through him like a blade. Simple yet profound. Your body is strong, but you're human. You need to give yourself permission to rest. For the first time in his life, Tom faced a truth he had long avoided. He wasn't invincible. He wasn't untouchable. No matter how much the world expected him to be fearless, he was, like everyone else, fragile. And the realization terrified him more than any stunt ever had. He explained how this moment forced him to reconsider everything. His entire career, his obsession with perfection, the endless pursuit of pushing limits, all of it had been fueled by a fear of stopping, a fear of admitting vulnerability. For decades, he had equated pushing himself to the brink with proving his worth. But lying in that hospital bed, with the pulse of mortality beating in his chest, he understood that courage wasn't just about facing external danger, it was also about facing yourself. Tom's words resonated deeply with the audience. Millions watching around the world could sense the weight of the revelation. The man who had spent a lifetime performing seemingly impossible feats was finally admitting the most human truth of all. Even legends need to rest. Even heroes need to pause. And even the strongest among us can be shaken to the core. For Tom Cruise, the lesson was clear. Courage wasn't just about jumping off buildings or performing death-defying stunts. It was about acknowledging your limits, accepting your humanity, and giving yourself permission to simply breathe. Finally, Tom revealed the reason he had gathered everyone in the studio that day. The anticipation was palpable. Cameras zoomed in, microphones leaned closer, and even the air seemed to hold its breath. "I'm not retiring," he began, his voice steady and commanding. I'm not stepping away, but I am changing the way I live, and I want others to hear this too." He looked directly into the camera, his eyes calm yet piercing, conveying a sincerity that no headline or movie poster could ever capture. It was as if he were speaking to each person individually, reminding them that behind the fame, the stunts, and the lights, he was first and foremost human. We spend our lives chasing perfection, success, approval. But none of it matters if we lose ourselves along the way, he continued. The truth is, I'm learning to be human again. I'm learning that it's okay to pause, to breathe, to be vulnerable. The words struck the audience like a lightning bolt. Here was Tom Cruise, the embodiment of fearlessness and physical prowess, telling the world that true strength sometimes lies in admitting limitations. Millions watching live online felt the gravity of his confession. For decades, people had seen him as the untouchable action hero, someone who could perform the impossible without flinching. Tonight, he was showing a different kind of heroism, the courage to be authentic, imperfect, and human. Then came the surprise that no one saw coming. Tom revealed that over the past 3 years, he had been quietly building something extraordinary. A program for young aspiring filmmakers and stunt performers, not for profit, not for fame, but free of cost. A program designed to teach more than just skills. It was meant to instill resilience, discipline, mental strength, and above all, the courage to face fear head-on. Every kid deserves to discover the courage inside them, he said, his voice cracking slightly with emotion. The courage I had to fight to find. The audience erupted into applause. Phones and cameras flashed. Online, social media exploded with hashtags, reactions, and messages of admiration. For a moment, the world paused to witness a man who had spent a lifetime performing death-defying feats, now dedicating himself to nurturing the next generation, not just as performers, but as resilient human beings capable of facing their own fears. Tom Cruise, the man the world had long admired for his stunts and charm, had finally shared the truth about the battles that mattered most, the battles inside himself, the fears, the loneliness, the relentless pressure, all hidden behind the image of perfection. And in revealing that truth, he didn't appear weaker. He appeared stronger, wiser, and more relatable than ever before. By the time he finished speaking, there was a profound silence in the room, one that carried respect, awe, and a deep understanding of what it meant to be human. In that moment, Tom Cruise was no longer just an action hero. He was a teacher, a mentor, and an inspiration for millions of fans watching around the globe. The message was clear. Greatness isn't measured only by stunts performed or awards won. It's measured by the courage to confront yourself, embrace vulnerability, and lift others along the way. And as the applause swelled, it was evident Tom Cruise had not only revealed his own truth, but had inspired the world to do the same.